Now on to the Sussexes, and Omid Scobie's new book Endgame is due to be released on the 28th of November. While it appears to be the rehashing of old allegations, it's now alleged that two royals made remarks about Archie's potential skin colour. Is that right, Esther?
Well, this is according to Omid Scobie, who has effectively got his meal ticket. He's someone who's reported on the royal family for decades, but now his alleged proximity with the Sussexes and having written their autobiography has meant that he seems to have an inside knowledge into what happened between the Sussexes and members of the royal family, at least from the Sussexes' perspective. At the end of the day, the issue of who commented on what the potential skin color of Archie would look like has not really gone down very well with the British public. Particularly in my case, I mean, if I had a child with someone who was not black, my family with impunity would probably place bets on the skin color of that child. I do think that there's an element of bad faith in terms of their interaction that this alleged kind of situation happened under. I don't think that it screams of racism to be curious about what the child of a biracial couple would look like. I don't even think that's particularly that interesting. I mean, when I saw Meghan Markle, I thought she was Puerto Rican. So I find it very curious that it's somehow now racist to assume what someone's child would look like. I also think there is a bit of unfair judgment going on here. I mean, Meghan Markle's mother was in an interracial relationship when she did have Meghan Markle, and I don't think members of her family would be accused of being racist for wondering what Meghan would have looked like when she was born. But obviously, we have to remember that Omid Scobie this is not an official sanctioned autobiography from the Sussexes. This is just something that Omid Scobie has written, given his proximity to the Sussexes, and apparently they're friends. This is something that's very much from his perspective. So we have to treat it with a grain of salt. We can't take it as the truth. And, it's very clear that he is benefiting, he is profiting a lot from his relationship with the Sussexes. I mean, a lot of the revelations from this book have been headline news here in Britain. So clearly there is money to be made. But if we're going to treat what he is saying as gospel and say that actually was more than one member of the royal family that was speculating about the colour of Meghan and Harry's child, I do think that there's an element of bad faith, and I don't think it screams of racism like the Sussexes at least would think it does.
In a similar vein, the book also alleges that the royal family chose not to get involved in the BLM movement. Now, I'm not sure whether that's an insinuation that the royal family is racist, but frankly, given the social and political bin fire that surrounded BLM, I think the royals probably did the right thing in staying well away from it.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting that now their proximity to the BLM movement is somehow a barometer for whether they're against racism or not. I mean, in the book, Omid Scobie said that, in all his years of being a royal correspondent, he was surprised by their lax and laissez-faire attitude towards issues that had to do with racism and discrimination, which is, very much, I highly doubt is true. The Queen had relationships with many world leaders, and you wouldn't get the inclination that the royal family were in any way racist. So this is very much written from his perspective. I do think it was a wise move on the royal family's part to not get involved in the BLM, movement. We do know that elements of the police, for instance, here in Britain, have really undermined public trust by seeing, police chiefs bending the knee at BLM riots, for instance, in the capital, when it really had very little to do with Britain or our race relations here in this country. It was very much an American import, and it's something that has taken years to fight against and to unwind and to actually unpick the intricacies of actually race relations here in Britain and how they differ from the US. And I think instinctively the royal family knew that, which is why one of the reasons why they chose to stay away from it. Again, taking Omid Scobie's word on the royal family's approach to BLM or just movements to highlighting racism and discrimination is not very wise, because he doesn't seem like a very credible source. I mean, there are many questions around who his sources are in the royal family. It doesn't look like he has many friends in Buckingham Palace, and the only real contact he seems to have is with the Sussexes, who are more and more trying to distance themselves from this book. I mean, it's clear that they are trying to move on from this whole kind of royal family saga, even though this is a can of worms that they themselves opened by having that interview with Oprah Winfrey and Harry's book Spare. So they can't really complain.